Empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men. Power Black men. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men to live extraordinary lives. Shatter the stereotypes. Shatter the stereotypes. Power Black men to live extraordinary lives.
Welcome to Shatter the Stereotypes, where the intention is to empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. This show is based on the simple idea that every Black man is capable of creating inner peace, dynamic health, great relationships, and financial abundance. Therefore, we provide insights and strategies to educate, motivate, and inspire Black men to reach their full potential and create the life of their dreams. So if you're ready for some high-octane motivation and inspiration that supports and empowers you to live the life you were born to live, get ready to shatter the stereotypes so you can build a life that lights you up and positively impacts the world. So now, let's shatter the stereotypes with your host, Coach Michael Taylor.
Hello and welcome to Shatter the Stereotypes, where the intention is to empower Black men to live extraordinary lives. One of the biggest myths about men, especially men of color, is that confidence is either absent or misplaced. But real confidence is not loud. It's not ego. It's not performance. It's built. Today, I'm joined by Arthur Rutledge, founder of Vertical Mindset Group and author of 11 Pillars of Confidence, Build and Lead an Empowered You. Arthur's work focuses on helping individuals and organizations develop internal structure because leadership begins within. He grew up on the east side of Detroit, launched his first business at 19, and has dedicated his mission to helping leaders rise vertically, growing not just in success, but in mindset, discipline, and ownership. And this conversation is about confidence as architecture. So, hello, Arthur. Welcome to Shatter the Stereotypes. How are you?
I'm feeling really good and I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right. So before we dive into your book and your work, let's start off with a few icebreakers. So first of all, tell us, what was Arthur like as a teenager?
That's a loaded question, isn't it? Uh, so I just saw this article, not to, but to just to start in this way about how how strong and powerful the Gen X generation was. You know, the first time we heard the word latchkey and having your own key at a young age and stepping through the door and doing a lot of your parents trusting you to have this independence. And so I was already, just to kind of set the framework for this to answer you, I was already independent as a person. I was always willing to try different things. I was super curious, which they say is a blueprint for a lot of success in people's future. I was I was motivated to do the things that I really love, and I was really honest with myself as a young man about what fit me,
Mm.
what I was able to put on, the cloak that I was able to put over me, and how I was able to create friends by way of being loyal. Another one, I was a very loyal person, but not just loyal to the idea of my friends, but friendship.
Mm.
I was open to the possibilities of other individuals coming into my space. I'm coming to other individual space and not feeling like I had to compete, but just looking for the camaraderie that I think that this world is in desperate need of right now. But we still are, you know, we still push forward, and that gave me a type of fortitude. You know, I got knocked down and got knocked down and I get back up. You know, type of mentality. So that was me as a kid, for
Okay.
sure.
All right. So name a woman who inspired you to be who you are.
My mother.
Mm.
My mother, Deacon Eva Laverne Miles Rutledge. I actually dedicate the book. Her beautiful picture is on the back of in the back page of my book, 11 Pillars of Confidence. And and I write about a lot of the things that she had going on. I mean, I know some people love the signs and everything like that. I'm a Sagittarius, a fire sign. She was a Leo, fire sign, and it was a lot of fire between us, but a lot got done. It wasn't the fire that was toxic or mean or anything of that nature, that people think that happens through friction. I think friction creates a spark, and that type of helps ideas really flow in between us. We're very creative, and she taught me how to dream and be creative, even though she didn't like sometimes where that took me out of well, it definitely took me out of my comfort zone. But parents don't really want you out their comfort zone that much. And so it stretched her, but ideas still happen. So she was the driving force with that. And she put me in front of, she kept me in front of God, and what that was for her, and it increased my faith to where I am today, where I can even talk into confidence, because you have to have, if not even a godly faith or a spiritual faith, you have to, and it's spiritual anyway, faith, but you have to have it in yourself, self-belief.
Yeah.
And the practice of coming back to yourself and doing it and being okay with doing it again, starting from the beginning, or just learning something new. And she gave me the endurance of what that looked like.
Nice. Now, name a man you look up to and admire.
Dr. Odell Jones, Dr. Reverend Odell Jones, my old pastor when I was growing up. Rest in peace now. He was a pastor of Pleasant Grove Baptist Church, Detroit, Michigan, and he was just famously known. Like he was helping Bill Clinton with his campaigns, and he met, Kennedy, and and Martin Luther King. He was like, in Jesse Jackson, rest in peace. He was in that brigade to fortify Black excellence and knowing and believing in ourselves at a very crucial point where a lot of the self-confidence for Black and Brown really could have a place or a platform to flourish.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he's the one. I even had a couple story in my book where he sat me down one day and he says, I said, how do you know all these people? How do you have the endurance to move forward? And he says, it's already in you. You're already in church choir. You're already leading people to the church, whether you know it or not. You led the basketball team to, one of our first championships, you have that in you. And it's so interesting how we really underestimate who we are, because we overlook the little things that truly make us unique and brilliant
Yeah.
in our beautiful, special ways. So he put that in, he installed that in me, and obviously with the loving hand of God, and with that at different points. But he was just always there, and he just saw that I didn't have my father around readily, and he kind of just took it on himself. I was his godson, and the way me and a couple others that were close friends, and drove us to the church conventions, and all this type of things. But he just always, he was just what a good person should be,
Yeah.
not just by title. And that was really important at the very beginning stages of uh, my life.
Now, I wrote a book titled The Cure for Onlyness, a Black Man's Guide to Joy, Passion, and Purpose. And in the book, I talk about the unique challenges that we as Black men face when we are in environments as the only person of color. So I'm sure you've probably had that experience. So how do you navigate through it?
All of it, joy, purpose. I mean, all these things are really connected to each other. We think we're in one aspect of our lives where everything is possible or nothing's possible, and those are just two terrible ways to look at it. It should be is a smidgen of one, and it's a lump of the other, and then vice versa at times. And I think it comes down to regulating who we are as people, who we are as coming back to ourselves. And I talk about it in my book as well, being lovingly kind to ourselves while we go through the processes that we get to learn. It's just saying, trust the process. It's a great saying, but it should be expanded. It should be build a process that we trust.
Mm,
And that really comes from clearing our mind, finding our spaces. Yeah, clearing our mind is another way of just saying bring ourselves into a peaceful state of being as much as we possibly can. In a good book, it talks about, the peace, a peace of heart, because I can't talk to you and you can't communicate with me, and we can't become we until we understand that this, this this narrow understanding has to be blown up in a way we can be open to the possibilities of ourselves and feel that freedom of creativity, that feel that freedom of innovation. That's what the greats have found in themselves, and that's where fulfillment comes in. And I talk a lot about the fulfillment. My book is talks into confidence, but it also talks into that is more about stepping into fulfillment of the person that we get to be. We all get to be fulfilled. It's a great promise of the good book and the Quran and all the great architects that's written books in our favor have talked about the idea of fulfillment. Through fulfillment, you have to have purpose to lead to that, and you have to have you start to when you're walking in that purpose. Are you walking in that why, the big why that we talk about? If it doesn't make, I've heard Les Brown say, if your why doesn't make you cry, why? The power of what that is, that purpose, it brings us into states of joy and confidence, just like joy. And I talk about this a lot in different interviews, is a frequency.
hmm
We levitate higher or lower depending on if somebody says you have nice shoes today, or if somebody gives you a negative comment. Confidence drops. Joy is the thing that keeps you bouncing back. I think underneath that is that side of it when you are stepping into your purpose, because if you keep on stepping into it, you're showing your self belief, and that can lead to mastery. And then but if you keep doing that, it levels out where it doesn't fluctuate in that side. You're not going through emotional roller coasters, and you understand the whole picture is just a step it, forward as our genuine selves. That brings on its joy. I can accomplish more, I can do more, I can be around good people, and I can generate what I decide I want to, because I've done what I've stepped into on a regular basis. I've set myself up for self mastery, and that's by way of that self achievement.
yeah. Now, my experience has taught me that most people that write personal development type books usually write them after going through some sort of adversity. So, in your case, did you begin by not having confidence in yourself? And what were some of the things you did that helped you build that confidence?
I went through a hard time 2020 like everybody else. It's not I decided, because I trained my mind to not be led by emotions, or more uh, to be more exact, fear. And I was able, because of that preparation that I kept putting to myself, that, living in the authentic person that I was becoming, and self-belief, self-mastery, this continuation of being strong. By the time I got to 2020, I was still in that mode. I may have got, it might have got, I might have some distractions, but I was able to level myself out and push forward towards what that was. So, I was going through these things where we had social issues. We had economic issues. We had mindfulness or spiritual issues. And I just didn't buy into the doubt, the blame, the shame that so many people did. And I didn't find comfort just to find comfort in somebody who was not going to be there uh, as a rock or a statue a statue that I can truly lean on, even past those situations. I fully found and developed community at that time. So these things all kind of came into how I end up writing the book. And I tell people, that um, it was never my plan. My mother turned over in her grave twice when I wrote a book. I tell people, like I wasn't the academic. But as an opsimath, late learner in life, and thank God I picked back up that mantle after school, which so many of us don't. I was able to understand what I was saying that I couldn't do or didn't see in myself, and as I continued to grow in that learning prowess that most of us can pick up, that was my option to get past the craziness of that time. And with both of those together, it built another fortitude in me that I did not recognize. And I was able for the first time to say, I have a voice.
Mm.
And I never realized how powerful our voices were. And that was the catalyst. When I came into that recognition about 2002. I was still speaking online. I was still doing the clubhouses. I was still, connecting with great leadership and getting involved with what they're up to. And they were involving me because I showed up as a consistent, reliable individual in their world by way of not letting the fears and the anxieties that are the lows keep me down. And I found it just another side of my voice that increased my voice, that increased understanding that I am valuable. I have as a quote, value your value. Remember that you are valuable and what that is. And that's when the spark came. I had people around me that were saying I was going to write a book. I'm going to write a book. And I said, you know what? By 2020, by 2022, middle 2022, that voice just kept saying, you get to write something that's going to be meaningful. If you say that accountability kicked in because I said, I want to be, one of my biggest things in life is I want to help over 1 million leaders be cultivated, be inspired to step into. I was saying that to myself. And then the voice inside was saying, if you want to do this, this is how you reach out to them. This is how you touch the people that you normally wouldn't be able to touch by yourself, just one over one. You have to leverage yourself. One, the rules of wealth. You have to be able to do what that looks like. And so all these things were flooding in. By the time 2020 came around, I was telling people, I'm going to write a book. And I didn't even have the first of it, but I already started writing quotes. I already got into a rhythm of writing something versus nothing over that 2022 time. I had already started writing quotes and things like that. And I thought, oh, I'm going to do a book of quotes and all this type of stuff. And it just evolved because I kept allowing myself to evolve.
So
And that's where I'm at now.
did you ever deal with imposter syndrome, which could also be described as a lack of confidence?
Yes. But I tell people not to rely so much on title because in our society, that's what we do, right? We put a title and we chain ourselves to that title. And the title, it just has to have another way of looking at it, another direction of how we look at it. Everybody is new at the beginning.
Hmm.
Imposter syndrome is being new, starting from scratch, rebuilding foundations. And it's the most tedious thing ever. It wasn't promised to be easy, but I always remind people that we have the child inside of us that persevered and got through those struggles, got over those obstacles when we were younger. And we bounced right back. We didn't think about it a second. We didn't hold on to, what we coulda, shoulda did or woulda did when we were younger. So finding our authentic self is really just remembering to check in with that child in us and remember that it's okay to go through that. We had the same feelings, but now that we're adults, we think we get to be rational about these. We don't have to rationalize a normal, natural emotion and how we step into those. So, yes, when I left, every aspect of my life, when I left New York, I left Detroit and started over in New York, people were telling me the naysayers were there, but the biggest naysayer is here. And once I got over that, and I said, step to the side, and I get to live my life, and in prayer, and lean towards the higher, and know that the higher leans into me, and trust that He knows what He's doing. He put me there, and these are just different ways, of for me to get past the idea of imposter syndrome, and the voice never leaves.
Yeah.
Whenever start to step into a new endeavor, I
Mhm.
put that in my book. The first chapter, start with confidence, is the first chapter of my book, 11 Pillars of Confidence. And I remind people, just of a simple title, that you know it, I went from school to school. I changed from private school to public school, and an awkward time in my life. I was teased for wearing a uniform, but then I went to another part and I got teased for something else. And nobody's for you until you're for you.
Yeah.
So if you don't do it, if you don't, it doesn't have to be regret, but it should be something that we're, as adults, evaluating thoroughly to make sure that we're not getting pigeonholed to something that really is just from a past trauma, from the past things, and it's not. And know that, again, we get to begin every time the alarm goes off. That morning, we get to wake up and be a new us at any time. And those are just hopeful, helpful, and inspiring parts of what helps us to get through things like imposter syndrome and everything. Is the syndrome, but it's not imposter. It's just another way to lapse on to fear that we've embraced way too much.
Right. So what inspired the structure of the 11 pillars of confidence? I mean, how did you choose those specific pillars?
As an author, the process is real, and especially if you're a first-time author. The first thing that I thought was, I knew I wanted to write a book. Didn't know what I was going to write on. I had all these things that I really personally identified with. And confidence was, again, it was overlooked. I took it for granted that I did and accomplished so many things in my life. And because it becomes almost second nature, just like having our hands or having a brain, when we don't appreciate it, we don't feed it, but we expect it to run for as long as our life is. We easily overlook what our possibilities are. And the first thing that I remember in writing this book is I was trying to find what aspect of what I was talking into really helped me. I was mentored and went to John C. Maxwell School. I say John Maxwell team, which is program, the John C. Maxwell number one lead, one of the number one leaders in the world on teaching leadership. With his great books, I stepped into that course in 2020. That was part of the transformation and the ways to empower myself during that time and can keep moving forward in growth. And I remember that, it's all these things that I could talk into. And then I asked friends that I found value in. And this one friend says, "You've been the most confident person. I mean, yeah, you have a great attitude. Yeah, 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 I've heard you talk into this, but, you know, I think that you should stay centered around the person that you already are. You are the confidence guy. And then, but that was 6 months into, or a little less than 6 months, 4 to 5 months into, after I said I was going to write a book. So I didn't even, I didn't have a master plan.
Yeah.
This is what I'm trying to convey to our audience, when it comes to it, and people, overthink it way too much, a lot of times. But it but I wanted to I wanted to give something that I felt like confidence does step into all these number of things. You have to have the bravery to do it, to be confident, right? I think is the number one things that helps you to remain confident during our efforts, and to endure, remembering why we did it at that time. And that was the third, the one of the bigger parts of everything that I talk into is manifesting. So I wrote down from that point when I had the idea of writing about confidence. I said, well, how many chapters do I want to write? And what's some of the elements that I've found in my personal life that I've gone through that I think will be relatable for people to step into their potential and step into what that is on a daily basis. And so I started doing the framework of the titles and things like that as normal. And it started off with nine. It was originally going to be 9 pillars. And by the time I wrote the 9 pillars, I had 3 other chapters, titles that I wrote down. And I thought to myself, I have more in me. All the time that I was stepping through it and from chapter to chapter, and as I completed it, I had more confidence in me being that author, me stepping into what those shoes look like and walking a mile or two. And so I got really comfortable. I made those shoes very comfortable, so to speak. And so by the time I got to the ninth, and I said I could stretch myself, I have these other titles. I think they're important enough to add. And so out of the three, I picked 2 more, and I love the significance of the 11, or the arches, and they stand together as pillars themselves when you look at them. It just made sense on that side of it. But it took me a year to really get those thoughts down. And then after that year, 4 months later, I had a complete book.
Mm.
Yeah. It's
So,
so, you get into a flow, but you don't know how that flow is going to go. You just trust what works
right.
and pray for the best.
Now, which of the 11 pillars do you think most people misunderstand and why?
I think one of the big ones was uh, oh wow, it's just it all there's a few of them, I think. I Let me just think. I guess be not wise in your own opinion.
Mm.
And I sat it in the middle of the book as you go through your read. And it's probably the most I push back on the ideas, or the idea that confidence is all good.
Mm.
Is different types of confidence. People think that they're portraying a good confidence when they're portraying a bad confidence.
Mm.
Being pompous, uh, uh, a person that projects something that they feel like makes them show up a certain way, but they make somebody else feel another way. And pretentiousness. All of us know a pretentious person, especially the world we're in right now. Like it's, and the confident, which I talk about in the framework as the good confidence, is a triangle that I make up as the good confidence. The three things that really help us to strive and relating to ourselves, and being willing to go back into a new relationship with ourselves. Is the contracts that we make with ourselves can be broken at any time. It's up to us. We don't have to feel guilt or shame around not following through as we're changing as a person. And so I talk about the good confidence, which is one, self-esteem. That's the first part of understanding how we can show up. The next one is self-worth, embracing our worthiness. And that's where boundaries start really being, we're able to put boundaries, not uh, not trying to cage ourselves in, or but to protect ourselves because we believe that we're a person that is worthy to be praised, and we're able to give that to other people and understand that. And the third one of those three is self-value, stepping into the idea, because when we know our value on things, then we're able to step into positions that, without imposter syndrome. If
Yeah.
I know that I'm valuable and I know that, and what I'm doing, and I place the value on what that is, and I know that I have uh, no limit, nothing to stop you from hitting, this stop right here that, we get stuck in, then that means that, whatever I put my eye on, like a child, whatever you put your eye on the prize. The eagle sees it from wherever, how far it is away from its prey, and that's how you get it. So, but that translates by being in those places.
Yeah.
It's coming back to each other, ourselves, caring about ourselves, and then knowing that if I care about myself this much, and I have this much reliability, this much self-worth, this much self-value in myself, that's what I get to give to others.
Right.
And that brings us it makes us humble. The meek, it says in the good book, shall inherit the earth. And it's true. More people want to help you in your endeavors to create something, extraordinary from your uniqueness sooner than later, if you're not bragging on it, if you're not using it to hit on over somebody else's head, to say, I done this, you done this, or comparison, or all these type of things that slow us down from creating the most beautiful experience of our living.
Gotcha. Now, can you define what you mean by a vertical mindset and how it differs from other personal development models?
Vertical mindset is something that obviously I use the model, the opposite, right? Horizontal. We go through horizontal thinking in our lives. They said that after high school, we're not willing to, it says, and this is factual, after high school, I think it's 64% of at least Americans don't pick up another book for educational purposes for reading. And after college is closer to 49% don't. We only feel like we need to go through the learning, or the finding out, not just the learning, but the openness of learning, meaning that not just, reading the newspaper or this and that, but something that's going to sharpen our soft skills, being a better empathetic individual, or our strong skills, that the workforce and things like that, that might need from us. And we might go through a manual after we get hired, but then we never look back. So we go through this place of coasting. And vertical mindset is not allowing yourself to be in a place of commonplace with everybody that's coasting along, following the leader, whether if they're wrong, or in a wrong direction. Course correcting, making sure that if you feel like you're flat, then you need to go to Zap. You need to find the ways that's going to spark you to start arcing versus plateauing in whatever aspect of your life you're in at the time. And that could be quite overwhelming when you're trying to do all of it once. But the pillars in itself, the word pillar, I break down the understanding that we go through pillars that are more important or prevalent in different seasons of our lives. Find no more no more than three, but I would say literally one or two things in that season that really call out to you that you want to really step into, and it uh, im- being okay with being perfectly imperfect, or imperfectly perfect, in that endeavor. So is the kindness. So vertical mindset is being lovingly patient with ourselves during whatever process we're stepping through at any part of our lives, and trusting. Start building. If you don't trust yourself, or you have trust problems with yourself, it's impossible to trust anybody else. Wayne Dyer, rest in peace, who was great, who's also from Detroit, rest in peace, brother. But a spiritual guru, but also practical in his approach. He says, you can't be a person without arriving at being the person you want to be. You can't get you don't get what you want in life. You get who you are. And if you're always working on the R, that means that you're getting 1% better in whatever you're keeping your eyes on that prize, whatever it is. And like I said, patient, lovingly patient, really is perfect. Those two words, I don't like to put patient by itself, or, I like to put lovingly patient in front of it, because again, we get to brave the storm that's inevitably going to come into our space, by understanding that we get to improve, we get to prepare, we get to do it little by little. Or if you have the capacity to step into it a little bit more, but find the pace that works for you, and be lovingly kind and lovingly patient during the process. So, those things are the arc, helps the arc happen for people. And vertical is not always like this. It could be like this, it could be slanted, but long as it's in a direction that you clearly stated to yourself that is for you. Don't, we do a lot of things because it sounds good, but we don't want to step into. So it is being, it's all these things, being curious with yourself, is being okay that, you're being new, like some of the stuff that we talked about. And is remembering that whatever you achieve, that's what you achieved today, but it's still more in you. And a lot of us don't want to look into the possibilities of ourselves. If I thought that way, I would never have gotten out 11 Pillars of Confidence. I would never have been able to write articles in Brains Magazine. I would never been able to travel the world at one point as a top model. But I wrote it down for myself, and I stayed accountable to what that was. My integrity for what I was becoming as a person was able to attract all the other people. You get you don't get who you are, what you want in life. You get who you are. That in itself is a frequency that it falls into the law of attraction.
Right.
We talk about the laws of the universe and how those roll out. You have to show up as the person. You got to be in the law of action. Those are the other ones. The law of oneness, knowing that we are all connected. And as you step into those, but you got to do it from a base first. And vertical mindset is just reminding you that it has to start somewhere. You have to lift off from a horizontal thought pattern
Gotcha.
into a behavior that brings you to higher levels, no matter what that is. And in the good book, I'll end it out with that. And I'll say with the good book, the seeds got to the ground, and some produced 60, some produced 30, some produced 60, some produced 100. I always remind people of that passage, because we are the seeds that we plant, and we can go as far as minimum, but long as we're moving forward, because that's the plan that the master universe has for us.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure within your book you have some exercises that people can use to help them, increase their confidence. But I'm curious, how can someone measure or track their growth in confidence? Is that possible?
Yes. The first way is you're going to feel it. When you do it enough, you feel your paradigm shifts. And so, one of the things that I tell people to do is either, and it can both, because if it's one, if it's more than one way, I always use that as another mechanism for growth. So I don't know, just put it on one thing, but write down, in the morning, 50 times with space, 30 minutes. Tony Robbins, even, one of the gurus, he suggests, writing these things down, writing things down in the morning, and your intention beside it, like three things that you're going to show up as, three adjectives that describes how you're going to show up in an optimistic, positive type of way. Doesn't mean you have to go around smiling at everybody and feeling, goofy or obtuse in way of behavior, with the behavior processes. But but if you just write it down, you keep it in your head, you get good at showing up as that. I always tell people, John Maxwell, which I got from him, he learned from another mentor, say 50 times that, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this. Even if you just say, I'm gonna do this, literally, you should put maybe a focus behind what that is, if you're feeling that you're not confident in that space. But, do say it 50 times in the morning, or when you wake up, or wherever you start your day, and right before you go to sleep, because you programming your mind for success. And whatever your mind holds on to, as the great or what Napoleon Hill says, whatever, you put your mind to increases, right? We become what we think about all day long. And the power of Think and Growing Rich, is the richest, which is the first health, which we know, as Ralph Waldo Emerson says, the first wealth is health, on our processes. So if we're thinking in healthy, productive ways, and we're putting that into our space, and we're intentionally doing that, and find methods to do that, whether sticky things or a vision board, great. But if you're writing and saying it to yourself, and you're in repetition, which is the mother of learning, right? You're able to step into a more powerful space. Now, over, they say, 20 to 30 days, you create a new habit. Well, a new discipline comes soon after that. If you can increase that another, 60, 90 days, automatically from doing that, even though it seems tedious at first, you'll get used to it. It'll become something that's normal. And normalizing vertical mindset is the key to becoming vertical in whatever we want to achieve.
Got it. Got it. So, what role does reflection or journaling play in your 11 pillar approach?
I put the ideas of writing something every day, you know, um, whether it's an affirmation, people, they're in a different space. I'm, I made sure in my book not to come off preach. I don't tell people, this is the exact way you should do it. There's no exact way for any individual to accomplish what they see in their heart. I know how to vision. So if your vision is fired up, you don't need much of me you what other aspects of that is. You're probably already doing it in part, and it makes sense to you, and you know how just to endeavor forward. Uh, but it's important to get our thoughts out of our heads. I don't know whether it's Les Brown or someone else who quoted, but you can't see yourself when you're in the picture. To get past where we're at in our lives, a lot more times is just to be able to see where we're going. We think, again, we take so much for granted. We take our lives a lot for granted, and how we go about doing things, because we're in a state of normal. We're in a state of horizontal thinking. But what about if we, at a place in our lives, decide that we want to build a more empowered us at some point? We don't want to be stuck in the same drudgery as yesterday, or we don't want to live the rest of our life like we lived last year or 2 years or the last, half of our lives for whatever. So I put practices to remember as we're writing, long as it's caring, it's sharing. If it's something that you need to compare, don't make yourself the whipping boy on how you are comparing yourself to other things, other people, other places. It helps you to see as you're writing, your fingertips are connected to the parts of the chemical parts of your body that creates dopamine and excitement around what you're up to. Even if you see the best part of yourself, and maybe in just writing that down over a paragraph, make it something that's a habit. Take out 10 minutes. Everybody can do 10 minutes, to a half an hour. You don't even need more than half an hour to write down some thoughts in a clear space, away from the kids, away from the partner. We get to be our own individuals, because if we're not good for ourselves, it's very hard for us to be that for someone else. Affirmations are great. Prayer is great. I've also heard, when we pray to God, he hears, us. But when we meditate, we have the chance to hear him, and so that it leads to other things to add to what I said at the beginning of the program: a peaceful or a peaceful mind, where we're able to let constructive and creative understandings and thoughts flow freely. And that's what we got to get to. That's the place where writing does. It helps clear your mind. So then when you have that clarity of purpose, when you have that eureka moment, when you have that innovative understanding of yourself that you might not have seen, it's all in one. It encumbers the whole use of the human possibilities that get to be seen as we're writing these. Also, and I'll use this as a caveat to that: stay away from anything or writing anything that's overly negative about your sense of your place right now. You want to practice the idea of optimism. I think Winston Churchill said, "There's no good being anything else. I'm an optimist. There's no sense in being anything else." When he was getting bombed over there in London all the time, I mean, for a person to find that himself and say, "Listen, doesn't mean I have to be cheery all the time. Doesn't mean, I'm not going through my hurts. I don't get to cry. We all get to feel all the emotions we do." And you will as you're flushing this out. But it's also a way to put Drano in your clogged drain. As you're writing this stuff out, it clears the way, like I said, for acknowledging the genuine, beautiful person that's in every one of us.
Yeah. So if you could reach 1 million leaders, what change do you hope to see in
I
society?
am meeting when I hit.
What
Yeah,
what change what change do you hope to see in society as a result?
more empathy, more understanding, more curiosity, more awareness. You can't go anywhere without understanding that awareness is the catapult. Is It leads us to a truth. And what is the truth? The truth is that we overlook. Again, we take for granted. We all have blood. We all have different colors, different shapes, and that are very similar to each other. And the only thing that's greatly unique about us is the things that we're feeding all the time, the things that that was given to us inherent from our Father above. And if you don't subscribe to that, just understanding that if I'm walking down the street, somebody else is walking down the street. If I'm eating something, somebody else is eating something. Our similarities outweigh our differences, and that should be the catapult for us to at least want to make a walk in the right direction towards hope interdependence and prosperity in the world.
Mm, that's what we're aiming for. That's what we're aiming for. So, as we wind down, I want to give you a final opportunity just to share your closing message with the audience.
I think I said enough. No, no, no. You never. I think for the right heart, I heard this a long time ago. The right person will hear the right thing. The wrong person won't hear it anyway. So, what I will leave for anybody that's open-hearted to the possibilities of themselves is to keep rising, to keep sharing. You know, one of my favorite things to say is sharing is caring. That's where generosity lies. We were meant to give from what we learned. Don't take this information and think it's only for you. No, it's for you to pass on. Pass it on, pass it on. Give it to people. Share with people what good intentions you have, what good ideas you have, the things that make up the beauty of your soul and your spirit. And put that into into whatever and however it works for you on a daily basis, because that is a truth that will transcend. A lot of us will feel like we need to stay in a place of mundane ideas and understanding, but we get to rise to something supernatural, meta-human even, that can really embrace the idea of being humane. You know, we forget the humane part. I mean, when we talk about humankind, is is the kind that is humane that makes the world go round. No matter what we think we're seeing, don't buy into the idea that the world is going to, a crap storm in whatever way. Long as you have the beauty in your heart that was given to you, and remembering to stay in that generous mindset of giving, that vertical mindset of moving forward, it will translate, whether it comes from your mouth or by way of your actions. To do is to be, as Socrates says. So be the person that you are meant to be.
Well, Arthur, I want to thank you for shattering the stereotypes and bringing such a powerful message. This is something that we as men of color definitely need to look into because confidence can be grown, if you will. If you lack confidence, you can change that. And so the book is 11 Pillars of Confidence, Build and Lead and Empowered You. Love that title. So again, I wish you continued success in all that you're doing. Arthur, thank you for sharing your message with us tonight.
Thank you for having me, and appreciate you. And I just want to give it back to you. What you're doing is just so amazing to the world, and if everybody had the same notion, we would get there sooner than later. But long as we get there together, as Martin Luther King would say, we get to the promised land together.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about. So this has been another episode of Shatter the Stereotypes, and that's the message. Don't buy into mainstream media. Shatter the stereotypes. Be who you were born to be. We'll see you next episode. Take care.